Welcome to Sideline Sanity with me, Michele Tafoya, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Go to legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. Coming up, Pro Football Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher tells us why he wanted to visit the southern border. He's next.
For nearly 3 decades, she's reported the action from the sidelines. She started very young. She's covered the NBA, NFL, Olympics, and the college football and basketball national championships. And now, during these insane times in our world, Michele Tafoya thinks we need a serious dose of sanity. This is Sideline Sanity with your host, one of the sanest people on planet Earth, Michele Tafoya.
Welcome to Sanistan. We're going to name this little place that we live here on Sideline Sanity Sanistan. We try to keep things sane here. Today's episode is important because people are conflating between illegal immigration and illegal immigrants, thinking that people who are against illegal immigration also are against the people who are coming here illegally. That's not fair. And that's not true in most cases. Many of us are all about immigration. If it weren't for legal immigration, I wouldn't be living here. And my dad always told me that this is the greatest country in the world. You're lucky you are here. And yes, I am. It's that he came here and his family came here legally. And that is a process which we should cherish in the United States of America. So the people who are crossing illegally, we don't have anything against them. They want to come here. But what about all the people who have come here legally, have waited in line, have taken their test, have done their processing, and have become American citizens because they really wanted to be here? What about the people who have been deported after years of being here under a legal visa, but that visa expires? Now they have to leave. What are they thinking as they watch this mass of humanity coming across unencumbered without having to face any process? Well, it's a very limited process. It's a very limited process. And for all of the gotaways, there is no process. And as such, illegal drugs are making their way here, and services are diminishing for people who are tax-paying citizens of their communities. And it seems like people are turning a blind eye to this, accepting this as something that it just is. And I like fairness, and I don't think this is fair. So we're welcoming Brian Urlacher, a Pro Football Hall of Famer who took a visit to one sector of the southern border. He's going to tell us about the experiences, again, the hypocrisy of saying that it's inhumane to transport these migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. What about the inhumanity of what these people go through trying to cross the border in the first place? And this White House is inviting it. So it may be surprising to some people to see Brian Urlacher on the podcast. It's going to be a really interesting conversation. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer, 8-time Pro Bowler, College Football Hall of Famer. The list goes on and on and on. How are you, and what did you think of your Bears yesterday?
I am doing great. It's been up and down. You get so high after week one, and then your expectations go up there for week two. But it's Lambeau, it's Aaron Rodgers. And week one was tough because of the weather in Chicago, so you didn't know what to expect.
It was brutal.
This week. It was terrible. I was actually there that day. Luckily I got out of town, but I don't know. New coaches are still kind of feeling out your team, but I thought they played hard on defense and they ran the ball great. So those are things to build on.
Absolutely. There's some hope there in Chicago. And it's interesting always to talk to a guy who's not been in the league for a while after your 13 seasons, all with Chicago, which is also unusual to spend an entire career with the same team. But you stay such a fan of your team. What is that connection like, Brian?
Well, to play with the same team, it's hard to do. Like you said, it's hard to do these days. That's one of the things I'm most proud of when I retired was that I stayed with the same team my whole career. I gotta kind of stop. I did grow up a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I do root for the Cowboys as well. But I do. We don't get as many. We don't get as many Bears games here in Arizona. I don't have any of the ticket or nothing like that because I don't watch. We're not going to sit around on Sunday and be like, okay, the Bears game starts at 10 or 11. We don't do that. If it's on, like last night, it was nice because it was on national TV. But we don't really search for the games. If they're on TV, we'll watch them. But if not, we don't watch. But obviously, I try and pay attention to what's going on there because I did play there for so long.
Yeah, you are definitely part of the Chicago Bear legacy and the NFL 2000s all-decade team. I mean, there's just, like I said, it could go on and on. You live in Arizona now, and so I'll ask you this question. How close to the border are you?
So we are about 3 hours from the Yuma border. I'm not sure. There's a couple other entry spots around Arizona, but we're 3 hours from Yuma, which is the place I went last week.
Let's get into that. Brian took a trip with some others down to Yuma, down to the border area. And why did you decide to make this trip, Brian?
So Sonia, your friend Sonia reached out to me on Instagram and actually was like, hey, we're going to take a trip to the border. And I've been watching this go on at the border for, probably over a year now, but you don't really know what's really going on until you go down there. And the thing I wanted to do was I wanted to meet the Border Patrol agents. I wanted to get a chance to hang out with them and talk to them. Apologies. Landry. Relax, buddy. Sorry.
Landry. All right. That's okay.
We got a few dogs. So, guy, quit. Okay. He's barking at the bush. He's so tough.
I got the same thing here.
It's unreal. I can't lock him out because I feel bad for him. Anyway, so I decided, Landry.
It's always at the worst times, isn't it?
They're such jerks. I don't get, like, they've been sitting here being good the last 20 minutes and all of a sudden, he's barking at a tree. Anyway.
So you wanted to meet the Border Patrol agents. Why was that important to you?
Because I've heard stories of what really goes on down there, and I wanted to see what they were going through on a daily basis and what they're dealing with, what they're encountering. It's amazing. They're not just Border Patrol agents. They're caretakers. These people come across the border. They're dehydrated. Some of them have endured, been raped on the other side of the border before these little kids come across. So they're caretakers. They're trying to get these kids to safety. It's really a bad situation out there. It's a humanitarian crisis is what it is. It's so sad to see. And to hear some of the stories from these men and women agents was really sad and eye-opening.
Before you got there, what did you expect? What were you preparing yourself for in terms of what you might see?
I honestly didn't know. I thought maybe, we'd be I got to do a lot more than I thought I'd be able to do, by the way. Chief Clem was amazing. We got to ride on a boat up and down the Colorado River. We actually saw people crossing. It was amazing. I didn't expect to see that because it's plain daylight and they're crossing. There's 4 18 to 25-year-old Venezuelan men crossing at 11:30 in the morning, and Chief Clem said we missed the big crossing that was about 5:30 to 8 o'clock. There was 600 people come across the border in 2.5 hours at just Yuma, just that one little area. I didn't know what to expect. I was hoping to meet a bunch of the agents and get a chance to spend some time with them, which I did get to do. It was awesome. But to see, we also got to go see where they house the migrants when they come across. It was just very, very sad and like it was eye-opening is what it was.
And so eye-opening and sad. Yeah. Let's talk about these Border Patrol agents, and it's got to be sad for them too. They're dealing with all this humanity. In many cases, they are being called out as, they're just trying to do their job, but their job has been stretched so thin. So what do they go through on a daily basis?
So they make them out to be villains, right? That's what you've seen on some of these news stations. I don't really watch them anymore, but they go to work. They're trying to protect our border, right? They're trying to protect us as American citizens from people coming in illegally. And now they're just letting them in. Not they. I'm not the border agents. The policies that are in play are letting these people come in here illegally. Chief Clem said the people will fly from Venezuela, Guatemala to Mexico City, and then jump on a plane to Mexicali, and they'll get dropped off 100 yards from the border and walk across the border. That's how easy it is. That's not a story for everyone, but the ones who can afford it do that. They pay the cartels to do all that and traffic them right through. There are some that walk across the desert to get across, and those are the sad stories that you're going to hear about. But these agents, they can't do their jobs. So they have to process every migrant that comes across the border. You know, it takes, I don't know, we saw the people that were trying to cross, we saw them stand there for 45 minutes talking to the agents. That takes the agents out of the field. They can't do their jobs, which, right, I mean, so realistically, even if the wall was built all the way down the border, it wouldn't matter because they're letting, the administration is letting them across the border. There's nothing we can do to turn them away. So all it would do was stop probably the amount of getaways down there. That's all it would do. It would make it less places to cross, and the getaway number would be smaller, but they still come across illegally.
It wouldn't, in your estimation. I'm curious about that because the whole idea behind a wall was to put a barrier up so that would discourage and shrink, like you said, the space for gotaways. Mm-hmm. But you're saying that because of the policies that are in place, even if there were a barrier up, there would be spots within that barrier for all these people to come through, and they'd have to come through? Yeah,
well, there's still, so the wall, I did see the wall. The wall's, it looks like it belongs there. It's amazing. You can see through it to the other side. There's little gaps. It's really I mean, I was shocked to see, like, that's the wall. I mean, it looks like it belongs there. But yeah, even if the wall had been finished where it was supposed to go, and it's funny because you go down there and you see all of the materials needed to finish the wall are just laying there. They're just there waiting to be finished. But even having said that, there's still, with the policy that's in play with this administration, doesn't matter. They can come across anywhere. So they'll just find, you know, the places where they can get across where the wall can't, like the water or whatever, which puts them in danger because the water is, that river is rolling. You know, we were out there on the boats, and that river's rolling. It puts them in dangerous canals you can jump over as well if you can swim. And, you know, here's stories of the mothers and fathers swimming across, holding their babies out of the water. And there's the Border Patrol's jumping in the water, rescuing these people. They showed me some video of what really goes on. It's sad. But yeah, the wall would definitely help because it would limit the number of gotaways, but the people would still come across because of the policy that is in place with this administration. All right.
I want to talk more about that river and what you experienced on it, and also what you saw in some of these housing situations. More with Brian Urlacher in just a second. It's going to be a cold winter, and hopefully you're going to be able to pay for the heat in your house. That's just one of many concerns we all have as inflation continues to just sit at an unacceptably high rate, a rate that's affecting all of us. So you've got your short-term problems like grocery prices and gas prices, and then you've got your long-term investment issues to think about. Well, good long play is gold. And the only company I trust when investing in gold and silver is Legacy Precious Metals. You need to check them out. They can tell you all about your options for investing in your 401k, your IRA. It's the time to do this. Remember 2008? People who invested in gold saw huge gains while others simply lost their retirements. Now, you want to hedge against that. You want to hedge against inflation. You want to protect against a weakening dollar, and Legacy Precious Metals can help you get there. So again, LegacyPMinvestments.com, LegacyPMinvestments.com. And let me give you the phone number. You can call and speak to an IRA expert directly. Just ask them all your questions. 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or LegacyPMinvestments.com. Okay, Brian, you mentioned being out on that river. You said it's rolling. Mm-hmm. It's not a creek. It's a river. What does it take for these people to get across it? How dangerous is that?
It's probably, I'm trying to think how wide it is, probably 100 yards wide, probably length of a football field wide. So it's pretty wide, maybe 80 to 100 yards. It's pretty wide. And the current, I mean, there's some rapids upriver a little bit. We went up there and looked at it. It's rolling pretty good. I don't know the speed, whatever, but it drops off. The problem is it looks shallow. And there's some spots that go to 18 feet, 20 feet deep, or it's not safe. You know, you if you're a good swimmer, you can probably make it, but if you're carrying your child or carrying all your belongings, it's going to be hard for you to make it. So there's a lot of times, like you hear these stories about people drowning, or they find their bodies 2 or 3 days later. It happens more often than I think we hear about from the news, but it's and also, like you said, there's a dam where the river ends, and one side is the United States, the other side is Mexico, and then on the Mexican side of the dam, you see the housing places where they house the migrants before they'll come across. They can go in there, and they got the lookouts. You know, we saw some lookouts when we were in the boats going up and down the river. It's an eerie feeling knowing that people are watching you, watching everything you do, and how easy it would be to get picked off by one of those guys. There's nothing you can do about it if it comes from that side.
Who are in the lookouts? Are we talking about drug cartels?
I'm assuming that's who's over there. Is it really drug cartels? Now it's smuggling cartels because they're smuggling people across the border. They're getting paid $5,000 to $15,000. Some of them are a person to come across, to get them to the border and across the border. So, I mean, they're probably making more money with that. I shouldn't say more, quite a bit of money with that than as opposed to the drugs. But yeah, it's just, it was nuts to see all the little cutouts in the dirt. They dug them down the ground, and you literally stand on. You can see at the dam. You can reach across and you can see the people right there waiting to cross or just hanging out in the reeds on the river. They're 10 feet tall, so if they're hiding in the reeds, you're not going to find them. And there's passageways that goes through there. It's just what they've done to conceal themselves is pretty amazing.
And you talked about the shelters on the U.S. side of the border where these people are kept. Is it a matter of they walk across, they get processed and go right to the shelter? Were you able to discern exactly what that is, what that kind of procedure is like?
Yeah, was able to see that, Michele. So what it is, it's the cages that the Obama-Biden administration built back when Obama was in office. So they built those cages back then. They wanted to be called someone else's cages, but I found out when I was down at the border, they were constructed during the Obama-Biden administration. So once they get processed, they go into these buildings, and it's just like a big tent. It's a huge tent, honestly. Like, we kept walking, there was just row after row of the cages. They're not really cages, but they are. And you have the mothers and the children and so on. They try and separate the single men, like the 18 to 25-year-old men you always hear about crossing. And that's what most of them are. You see there's a huge holding cell of 200 or 300. And there was 1,800 migrants in this facility when I was there. 1,800. Just at Yuma, waiting to be processed and released to go to their court dates so they come back and figure out what's going to happen with them. But the mothers and the children are pretty much all kept together. But they do separate the men. Like I said, there was a ton of single adult age males, by themselves in there. And that's what we saw crossing that day as well with the males. But, these countries are sending, you got Venezuela releasing people from prison and sending them to our border because they know we'll let them in. They're letting people out of prison just so they can get rid of them. And they know that they can come across our border with no problem. I saw an article today talking about that. But it was crazy to go in there, and the manpower it takes to run that facility. I mean, if the agents aren't doing it, they have to have volunteers come in and do that because the agents don't have time to go in there and run, get food to those people, process them, find them a place. It's just another story. So there's being babies handed down, set on the ground over the wall with pieces of paper pinned to them with an address or a phone number. Call this number or send me this address. And they have to follow up with all that information to try and get the child to where, hopefully it's not a trafficker. Hopefully it's a family member where they're trying to deliver this child to, but they assign someone to that child and try and get them to that address to that person.
Which is an amazing responsibility to give anyone.
Yeah.
Just here's a child, here's an address, go make this happen. Yeah. And you're not really sure. You're caring for the child on the one hand, which is a massive responsibility, and then trying to do this. You mentioned Venezuelans being let out of prison and then sent here. I'm wondering then, when they go through processing, there has to be some record, doesn't there, of this person's criminal background?
Yeah, if it happened in the United States, there's definitely a criminal record. If it's and I think that once they release them, I'm not sure how easy it has to be, like Interpol or something like that. They can find their record from wherever they came from, but they still have to let them in. They're still being processed and put into the holding cells, and then they'll be released for their court date. So unless it's from what I understood, or maybe I heard it wrong, but unless it's a crazy, like a record in the United States, they may not know much about these people that are coming over, unless they have a record here.
So we need to remember that that they're doing their best down there, and that we have heard of criminals being apprehended and sent back. Mm-hmm. But it's, again, the distraction, the amount of time it takes to process every individual. And then you're thinking, okay, so now where are the cartels smuggling the drugs through? And that's a whole nother. Yes. What did you learn about the drug smuggling?
We didn't even talk about the drugs, honestly. I mean, I think that's just going to happen. They try and get what they can, obviously. but the human part of it is what they're trying to stop right now. Not stop, I guess, but trying to like corral, maybe. I don't even know the right word to use for it, Michele, because it's such a, I mean, I spoke to Chief Clem. He's the chief down at Yuma. I spoke to him yesterday, and there was 750 crossings yesterday before noon at Yuma. They're going to go over 300 crossings so they call them arrests in Yuma this week for this year. In 2020, there was 8,800 for the whole year. 8,800 in Yuma.
But you said 300. You meant 300,000?
300,000. I'm sorry. Yes, 300,000 for the whole. They're going to pass 300,000 this week. Crossings at the Yuma sector just this year, and in 2020 there was 8,800 total.
8,800, and now it's 300,000
to this point. So this year there could be up to 400,000 when it's over.
I mean that increase is staggering.
Yep.
And so what does Border Patrol tell you about what they need, what they want, what they hope, could you get a sense of how they're holding up?
You know what? Mentally, I feel like they're really strained. You know, to see what the stories they told me were gruesome, and I saw some pictures of they find bodies in the desert, they find bodies in the river. I mean, children. It's just to hear some of the stories of what they see and this is every day for them. They encounter this every single day of the last year and a half. It's been every day. They find these things, and it's been obviously more the last year or so. But just the mental strain and to not take that home with you, it's literally PTSD. They're having to find ways for these men and women to get counseling or find ways to deal with these things that they're seeing and having to deal with every day. The humanitarian part of this is just really sad for them to go through, because I'm sure when they signed up to be Border Patrol agents, it wasn't quite what they thought they'd be getting.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
This influx. And the reason I want to bring it to people's attention is because it doesn't seem like, I don't know, the LA Times, the New York Post, the Washington Post, many of our major networks are covering this as a story. And yet, as you describe it, and as I've seen in many other descriptions, it is a humanitarian crisis. People are actually dead down there. There are people dying trying to cross, and we're looking the other way. And it's astonishing to me. So you didn't know what to expect. Now you've been there, you spent time, you talked to Border Patrol, you saw the facilities, you saw the people. What is your lasting recollection? What did this do for you or to you?
Well, I'm going to go back. Just to try and help, the morale of the Border Patrol agents is so low because of the way they're depicted, I think, in the media. Some media depict them as bad guys. They show them doing things that they aren't really doing. That they switch it around to try and make it like they're bad guys. They're not bad guys. They're not bad women. They're trying to do their job the best they can, but the morale is really low at some of these places because they think people don't like them. They think that they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. So to see, I was down there with Nick Lowry. Nick punted, it was a kicker for the Chiefs for 18, 19 years. He was down there. He was a fun guy to be around. And just see, Chief Clem was it really helped our guys. It motivated them. It helped them. Morale went up a little bit. Just if we can help out a little bit and even just, get some eyes open to what's really going on. Because like you said, you're not seeing it reported. There's a few stations that'll cover it, but not to the extent that it should be covered. But the border's closed. Our southern border is closed, right? That's what we're told. That's every time I hear someone talking for the administration, the border is closed, the border is secure. It damn sure didn't look secure to me. I literally watched 4 guys walk across, talk to our agents, get processed, and then they get, they're in a holding cell for 2 days or however long it will be, and then they're released until they go to their court date. So if that's a closed border, then we got problems.
It's really something. Why are you going to go back? Just to show the support to these guys that you feel need it?
Well, it means something to me. I want to help as much as I can. I want to let people see what's really going on. If we can get more people doing the same thing that I'm doing, and we appreciate you for reaching out to me to come on your show. But if you can get more eyes down there and more, maybe people will start to realize that there really is something going on that shouldn't be happening. You never know. But the more people who are trying to help. And I'm going to get some buddies of mine who play baseball and hockey to try and come down there with me and help lift morale. You know, I know it's not that big of a deal, but to them, I think the agents like to know that people care and that that people do care about them and want to come see them and support them. And
again, you said it was really sad walking through these holding areas and seeing these people kind of just you talk about the quote unquote cages. Help me visualize what those really look like. Are they stacked? Are they single story? What do they look like?
So you walk into one like I'll call it a hallway, and on one side there's 3 holding cells, and they're probably 30 by 30. They're good sizes, and then there's probably a 20-foot area in the middle where the agents patrol, and there's probably, and this one, I'll go with the mothers and the children. This one, there was probably 60 people in this cell, maybe 50. And on the other side, same thing. And the further you get back, that's where it wasn't as many people in those cells. We didn't walk all the way to the back, but there was probably 3 layers of different cells, not stacked on top of each other. And in the front, there's bathrooms. There's 3 bathrooms on each side. And then so they can walk out of their cells and go to the restroom. They take showers. I'm not sure. I saw some, the agent was like, those children and mother just came from, they were dressed, obviously. Their hair was wet. They just came from the shower. I'm not sure how often they get to do that, and they're just sitting in the cell, like it's clear plexiglass. You can see into the cells. But they're just laying on these, like, and their blankets are the tinfoil things you see. I'm not sure what and they're laying on a pad on the ground with the tinfoil things covering. The children are playing with each other, but it was, you feel like you're at the zoo, honestly, because you're looking at them and they're looking back at you, and it's really awkward because the number one, the communication barrier. You can't say much. You don't. I don't know how to speak Spanish, so I couldn't speak to them. But it was really, really sad and awkward to kind of be in that room looking at them while they're all they see you walk in and they're looking at you as well. So it was very, very eerie and weird feeling.
It strikes me as you talk about this and you being down there and really I'm trying to let people know you were down there because I don't think this got enough attention with you and Nick. And yet in the previous administration, I know we're not supposed to say the name, right? But that's so stupid. President Trump, when he was in office and stuff was going on at the border, hordes of Democrat politicians went down there crying, screaming about children in cages and they're drinking water out of toilets and this and that. And it doesn't sound to me like I haven't seen any trips from them. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I don't think she's been down there since Biden's been in office. I don't think she's really caring what happens there. And I hate to make this political, but the hypocrisy of it is astonishing to me. The numbers are up dramatically. Deaths are up dramatically. Fentanyl's coming through. We've got a real fentanyl crisis in this country of people overdosing on this drug that's coming across the southern border. And I'm hearing crickets. But then once they get transported to New York or DC or Martha's Vineyard, everyone went crazy. And, I'm thinking, what are you saying to these border towns that they're just supposed to deal with all of this and nobody else in America is?
It's just too bad, I guess. Until it's in our backyard, we don't care. But it was amazing how fast those 50 migrants from Martha's Vineyard got taken out. Yeah, like they had the National Guard. So I saw a post on Instagram. So that's how the government should handle it, right? For every migrant, not just the 50 went to Martha's Vineyard, right? It's crazy because I saw the picture of AOC crying at the cages. She would be right now, if even though it's her guy, Senator Biden is in office. She would be crying because it's worse now than it was, I would think, under the Trump administration. And there's definitely less people. There was a lot less under that administration than there are now because those cages are whole. And that's just at Yuma. I can't imagine at the Uvalde and some of these big crossings, Del Rio, where they get, 1,500, 2,000 a day in an hour, and Yuma's a small crossing. So it's just, the hypocrisy is out of control. They won't go down there. I don't think Harris has been down there once. Senator Biden hasn't been down there at all that I know of. Since Brian 1, them 0 right now. They haven't gone yet to check it out.
I'm a little chuckling at that you're calling him Senator Biden. Have you just kind of forgotten that he's president now, or you choosing
I didn't forget. I don't forget. I just Yeah. I don't really know who's making the decisions, so I'm not going to, maybe it should be President Rice. Maybe it should be him or still be President Obama. I might refer to them as President.
Come on, man.
I did see he finally did an interview yesterday, if you want to call it that, for the first time in over 5 months. He actually took some questions, but they were gifted. They were set up. It's hard. Yeah. It's just frustrating for me to watch everything that's been going on.
It's got to be for people all over Arizona and Texas. And, you played your college ball at New Mexico. Mm-hmm. These border states dealing with the brunt of this, no one paying attention until it shows up in their backyard. And then once it does, boy, all hell breaks loose and it's unacceptable there. It's just astonishing to me. And I wonder if they don't see how hypocritical they are, or they just don't care. I don't know, but this is an American issue. This is not, just Democrats, Republicans. This is people losing services, losing some security, losing all of this stuff because we seem to be giving more attention, at least the government is giving more acceptance to people who are not citizens of this country and not really. And, like you said, they give them a court date. This is the procedure, but something's changed. Something's changed at that border because we're seeing historical numbers, and I don't understand why people aren't paying attention.
I don't understand why it's happening. I don't understand why it's okay. In my mind, I can't process the information. Why you would just let people come across our border like that, and everyone thinks it's okay. It's they should all be able to come here. It's America. We want people to come. We do want people to come. I agree legally. I do not disagree, but there is a way to do it the right way. And I was told that process by our border patrol agents as well. There is a way to do it legally. And they respect that process. They're like, there's a good way to get here. But the way it's happening right now, I don't understand why. I guess maybe that Senator Biden's trying to give them all amnesty down the line. I don't know. Maybe that's his plan in the future. I just don't know why. There's 4 million that came across right now. There's 100,000 people that live in Yuma. 300,000 migrants have come across the border just this year. That's 3 times their population in 9 months. Yeah. I don't understand it.
I don't either. And why that's acceptable or not even acknowledge the fact that it's going on. And some people just won't even acknowledge it. And I don't understand that at all. And I'm trying to be rational about this. I am with you. Look, I am the daughter of legal immigrants. My grandparents emigrated here legally. And I'm all about that. And in fact,
as am I.
Yeah. In fact, I really feel this is a slap in the face to people who have come here, gone through the process, become American citizens, waited in line, done all the things the right way. And they've got to be looking at this saying, what did I do that for? How is this right? And then people being ushered out because their visas have expired, their work visas have expired. And yet they're looking and seeing all this happening and saying, well, maybe I should just fly to Cali and walk across and to come back in.
I just heard a story. This is terrible. But 2 weeks ago, a doctor, Indian doctors that have been here for 20-something years, their visas just ran out. They got deported. They've been here for 20 years. Their visas, it was something along those lines. They were both doctors. They just got deported because their visas ran out. So what they should do is just fly to Mexicali and walk back across the border, and you're good to go. Let me tell you another thing. So the clothing that some of these people come across the border, some of the women are wearing high heel shoes. So they've literally and there's some that the people that actually try, that walk across the desert for 2 and 3 days, they look much different, obviously. But there's people that, like I said, that fly from wherever they come from to Mexico City, to Mexicali, and they walk 100 yards across the border, meet our agents, and they get processed. They're wearing clothes like you'd be wearing. It's like a date for them. Like they're going out to do something, and they're just coming across the border. They want to look good when they cross the border, so they're all dressed up. It's amazing to see that. I was like, I did not expect to see the clothing on some of these people that I saw in those holding cells.
Brian, when you go back, we'd love to know about it. Just, it's amazing to me. And I'm so interested in the fact that this has become so important to you. And is it just your sense of patriotism, right and wrong? What do you think it is?
Well, number one, it's in my backyard. Living in Arizona, it's right here. It's right here by us. The news does cover it down here quite a bit, which is nice that we see it. But I feel for these agents, and law enforcement. Law enforcement is very important to me. I think they get a bad rap these days. So any chance. And when I was approached, and they said just to kind of raise the morale of the agents, I was like, sign me up. I will go as many times as I can if it helps. Help these guys get a little better. But we got a chance to speak to. I probably spoke to 80 or 90 agents that day. It was awesome. And then I talked to Chief Lim. He was like, "Well, we had some guys who were pretty upset that they didn't get a chance to meet you while they were down there. So obviously, I'm going to go back and try and spend a couple of days there so I can meet everybody." But the stuff that they have to deal with should not be happening. They should not have to deal with these children they're finding in the desert with something pinned on them, or to hear the stories of the rape that takes place before they come across. It's I'm not even sharing some of the gruesome stories that I was told by these agents, because it's just you wouldn't believe it until you heard it from one of their mouths.
And I'm wondering about the pushback you might expect when people find out that you hold these very strong opinions. It's not easy when you're an athlete and a Hall of Famer.
I'm an ex-athlete, so I really I got nothing to lose. I've kind of been standing firm on my position this whole time. I'm not going to break. I'm not going to back down. I don't really care anymore. The whole cancel thing doesn't really scare me too much. I got my kids are pretty strong-willed as well, so I'm not going to let that affect me anymore. And like I really feel like people are starting to open their eyes a little bit. So I'm definitely not going to back down now. But what makes me mad is when people say things or do things, and then they get a little bit of a little pushback and they just back down.
Yeah.
That's never been me. That's not going to be me. A couple of years ago, they tried that with me, and it didn't work in their favor. I'm not going to be that guy.
I think the more people apologize, the worse off they are. You don't need to apologize when you believe something and when it's a value and when you stand by it. Apologizing is what they want from you, and it's just one step closer to shutting up altogether. And that is not what this country is about. It is not about keeping your mouth shut and hiding from critics. So I applaud that example. Doesn't surprise me from the former defensive player of the year and defensive rookie of the year and all this stuff that you did. But thank you so much for telling us all of this, and I'll look forward to talking to you again, because I'd love to hear about your next trip.
Thanks for having me on, Michele. It's good seeing you.
Good to see you. He is Pro Football Hall of Famer Brian Urlacher, unafraid. So I would encourage all of you, be brave, do good, and keep following us on @SidelineSanity on Twitter. Well, Sideline Sanity, we are very proud to be sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals, and we're joined by Charles Thorngren, the CEO of Legacy Precious Metals. Charles, we are hearing now that this is not transitional inflation. This is not a bump in the road. This inflation is going to be here a while. What does that tell you?
That's the scary thing. I think, economies and such like that, they can deal with small jars. We have a unique situation. We had a Fed that waited much too long to react to the situation, calling inflation transitory for a year when everyone knew it wasn't. But more importantly than that, coming out now saying, this is going to be here. This is long term. This is not short term. We're going to have elevated rates for the long term. And why that gets really scary is that means the cost of doing business is going to be elevated for years, which means the cost of goods are going to be elevated for years, which means if companies can't make enough money, they will go out of business. This is why we hear some of your bigger companies are already talking about layoffs. So it's a unique situation. The Fed found themselves in a very bad place, and they reacted way too slow. And this is why we're at where we're at.
So if I'm an investor, then why do I want gold and silver in my portfolio? What will that do for me?
That's a great question. And that's a question we get a lot. And really what gold and silver do, they act as the hedge against the dollar weakness. They act as a hedge against the other markets. And we know that the Dow and all of your markets, all your indices are pulling back, right? That's not the issue. It's not what's already happened. It's what's yet to come. And that's where we need to prepare. So depending on who you listen to and the research that you do, there are case studies that are saying expect to see another 20 to 25% pullback in your equities markets based on interest rates and loans, and the bond markets, they're suffering as well. No one's going out to buy bonds knowing that they're going to be an increased return on them in 3 months. It makes no sense. So that leaves you in a position of what to do with your money and how to protect yourself. This is where gold and silver come in. This is why we say this is a long-term play. You buy it, you forget about it, let it do its job. And its job is to go up over time as the dollar gets weaker, as the purchasing power gets less. Gold and silver increase. It protects that purchasing power. And that's the great thing about it.
And there's your bottom line and why you need to call Legacy Precious Metals or go download their investor's guide at legacypreciousmetals.com. Charles, it's always good to talk to you because these are nerve-wracking times for people. It's just the fact of the matter is, as we were told by the Fed chair, there's going to be some pain. So if people know that they've got something solid sitting in their investment portfolio, I think they're going to feel a little bit better, right?
Absolutely. And we, when we look at the actions that have happened just recently, the Fed has taken a very unique stance, and they've done something very extraordinary. 3/4 of a basis points raises months in a row. That's one of the largest raises you've ever seen in the Fed through the history of the Fed. And it's not just once. One time is shocking. Here we are on the third month now, and we'll probably do another half a basis point next month or later this month, possibly even 3/4 of a point. So when you look at that and you say that number is going to grow to where the Fed interest rates will be about 5%, unheard of. That means the interest rate to you and I, if that's what banks pay to borrow money, we're going to see, credit cards will probably be over 28, 30% again. You're going to see home loans coming in 9, 10, possibly even 11%. And it's a scary time. And this is why we say, okay, know that it's coming. Don't be afraid. You now are aware, so now you can protect yourself. And that's what we help people do.
Don't be afraid. Prepare. Just prepare yourself. And like I say every day, I trust Legacy Precious Metals when it comes to investing in gold and silver. So go to legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. Charles and his group can answer any and all of your questions. Charles, thank you so much.
My pleasure as always.